Thank you. Amazing, thanks. All right, thank you for that great intro. All right, before we dive in, thank you. Welcome to Tech Thursdays, Art of Gathering. I'd love to get a sense of the room. It is full. There's 2 seats up front, too, if anyone wants to take it. How many of you identify as a community builder? And I see some of you. Don't be shy. All right, there's a lot of you. How about a founder entrepreneur? Okay. Work in tech? Want to work in tech? Hiring in tech? Look at each other there, maybe. Just here for something to do tonight. Awesome.
Brian at the front, I love it.
Great, amazing. My name's Ashley. I am an exec recruitment consultant, which is just a fancy title for headhunter. I partner with different tech founders to find leaders, really strategic talent across Canada. I'm originally from Waterloo. I moved here last year, and I was really in awe of the community and the tech community here. Previously, I used to work in community building and community engagement, and so to just see those worlds come together with tech and community has been really inspiring. And so been a fan of these folks, which just sounds really creepy because we're just like community members, but dreamt up this panel, convinced Phil to do it, and here we are. This is Phil's first time on the stage as a panelist, so super excited. Yeah. And we'll get into it. I will add, have any of you read The Art of Gathering or know Priya Parker's work? It is a book. If this is something you nerd out on, definitely look into it. There's a course, there's a newsletter if you want to nerd out when you get home. There you go. Love it. Okay, let's get into it. So I would love for each of you to kind of say what it is that you do, how it started, how it's going, and your why. And maybe, Sandy, we'll start with you at the end there, and we'll work our way back.
Nice to see everyone here. Sandy Gilbert. I'm a tech founder of a fintech platform called DealPoint, but I'm here today to talk about Intergen, which is entering our 6th-year organization that matches senior business leaders with the next-gen entrepreneurs to help them as they're scaling through growth. And we have a fund that invests in only Alberta companies at that stage. So we call it post-seed, pre-series A rounds. But we do know the key thing about the Intergen initiative is really our community, and we'll be talking about that later.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kat. I'm the co-founder of Offline Wellness Club. We're a cold plunge and sauna studio that actually just opened in the city about 2 weeks ago. Our journey was much slower these 2 weeks. The concept actually came about 2 years ago, and me and my co-founder were super burnt out at work. And then the reason I'm on this panel is because we started a community when we were trying to find space. We had a really hard time working with landlords, given that we were 2 25-year girls with no experience. And so we thought, why sit on our ass when instead we could create a community? So that's what I'm going to talk about today, as well as my thought.
Hey, nice to meet you. I'm Philip. I run Tech Thursday, and so we host these events every week. Thank you guys really, truly so much for coming. It would have been so embarrassing to host an event called The Art of Gathering, put yourself on a panel, and no one showed up. That's great. That's awesome. But in all seriousness, though, the true art of gathering is when you don't get that many RSVPs, text the venue and say to remove a row of chairs so it feels a lot fuller. So, little secret, I'll just tell you that up front. That is what I did. Story for those folks in the back. Yeah, but it looks way fuller. Is that good? No, this is great. Awesome. Anyway, I told Nicole that I slightly preferred Philip over Phil, and so I feel bad. You guys can call me Phil or Philip. I really don't mind. And we host Tech Thursday, Winnipeg, Calgary, and today is our first time doing Tech Thursday across 3 different time zones. So it's in Edmonton this week, it's in Ottawa this week. Were you just where?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's going to be in Edmonton next week. So we'll be across 4 markets with a few pop-ups for Toronto Tech Week and stuff. So thank you guys so much for having me.
So good. My name is Tate Hacker. I'm co-founder and chief strategy officer at Zayzoom. We're a financial technology company here in Calgary. A couple hundred employees. We raised $70 million or so dollars. Speaking of community, so let's go through it. So Sandy, early supporter of Zazian, huge thanks there. We'll get into sort of some of the early fundraising stories as well and how Calgary got behind us. Offline Wellness Club, I've been there a few times in the last 2 weeks already. Sauna more than the cold plunge, but loving it. And then, Phil is just always around, and so it's just fun, like full encompasses community.
Okay. I love it. Okay, really teed us up for my first question, and Sandy, I'm going to throw it to you first. Community is obviously the big theme here tonight, so I'm curious how you personally define community today, how that's evolved, especially in a city like Calgary. You know, what makes Calgary unique when it comes to community building, and then we'll just kind of go through the panel.
Is that 3 or 4 questions?
It's a lot. I threw it at you. Take whatever you like.
I got you. So really, community is where people with like minds and like interests tend to gather. That's what I would think the community is. We are really fortunate in the city of Calgary to have had people that have come from all over Canada and other jurisdictions to settle and live and grow their businesses and their families here in Calgary. And many of them started coming here from smaller communities. So the early OGs in Calgary came from farms in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and that really, they brought that community thought and idea with them. So I often say things like, in Calgary, it really doesn't matter where you came from, where you went to school, but you will be welcomed and you will be introduced to people that can help you in your ventures. And if you were in Toronto, you know, not much community in Toronto really, because it's kind of where you went to school, you know, what your dad did, you know, that kind of stuff I think happens a lot there. And Vancouver is another place that I'll say that it's a fantastic place. We've got many friends that live there. I've spent a lot of time in Vancouver, talking about Victoria, but I always say people like to live in Vancouver, but do they really love Vancouver? And the one thing about Calgary is that people that live here love Calgary, and we're here to make it a better place, and that's really what community means to me.
Amazing.
So I thought about this quite a bit because I was like, I actually don't know how to define community. And where I landed was that I think it's just based on being present with other people and having shared experience. So it can be as small as like sitting on the couch with your housemates, or as big as attending a 200-person run club. I think everything in between, that's community. And I'm going to echo what Sandy has said about Calgary. I moved here from Toronto in 2020, and I was immediately met, even though it was COVID, immediately met with like so many friendly people inviting me to things. I didn't know a ton of people. I knew my sister, and I immediately felt like I fell into a group. And I think that makes Calgary extremely unique, because in other cities, again, you have kind of these cliques that form, but because so many people come to Calgary from other places, it makes them that more willing to invite your people in as people move to the city. And I think that as we continue to grow, which we are, it's just going to be that much more of a great place to build these communities.
Yeah. I think maybe taking the question in a bit of a different direction of like why community is so important today is like I feel, and this might not be the case. I'm sure there are like a lot of folks who go to church or go to some like religious meetups or gatherings, practices all the time. But I think like broad strokes as a society, we've like slowly secularized as a society over the last, probably like 3 decades, right? Like since the 1990s, we've like slowly secularized. And I think like my perception on what's happened is since the pandemic hasn't necessarily like ruined our social gatherings. I think it like woke us all up to, oh my God, we have no social gatherings. Like we've all shifted to going to Instagram or like Facebook groups in order to make connections. And I feel like that's really not scratching the itch of what so many people are looking for, right? They're looking to meet people in person, looking to build long-term relationships, and like your Instagram DMs or like people liking your story on Instagram is just not scratching that itch. And so like what all three of you guys are doing is like really remarkable of let's build really long-term Sandy with like intergenerational. It's almost replacing what would happen, at the church or right where you go, hey, like this person who has long-term experience, when would they ever get the opportunity that you're setting them up for? And you guys as well, like the amount of times I've come to Offline Wellness Club and it's like all people who moved to Calgary like 2 weeks ago. Like you would never be able to like share that common ground and remove this sort of ickiness of, we're this is for some sort of greater something. Like I think this generation really cares about. We want to live in the moment. We want to like live with our community and build a community together. So I think that's why it's really important, and what you guys are doing is super important and shared with you.
Awesome. Where do you want me to go with that? So I moved to Calgary like 12 years ago now. I actually didn't like Calgary for the longest time. I ended up like, it was a long time from Ottawa, Rico, and I was convinced that like Calgary was just like a stopover. I actually moved back to the island, Vancouver Island, during COVID, and that made me appreciate Calgary tons. I think you romanticize things. I'm 33, so still probably romanticized like teenage years somewhat, and early childhood and young adult friendships. And moving back to the island during COVID was it was fun for a bit, and I realized how much I really wanted to be in Calgary. And I actually think that the city did change a little bit as well. But I also was very conscious about making effort, very mindful about like wanting to dig into the city to create a little bit of my own community as well. I think that like-mindedness, you're right. Like-mindedness is sometimes seen as a really bad word because you get like that groupthink and whatever else. I don't think that it's a bad word at all. It's a really good word. I think that like-mindedness doesn't mean a lack of diversity. I think it means that there's a bunch of people that are striving for the same thing or have the same interests. And in my case, like I just want to surround myself with really ambitious individuals. It doesn't matter what sector you're in or industry you're in, but that's really what I want to do. And so maybe like a year and a half ago or a year ago, I found myself like having a really good pocket of people to chat with in San Francisco and a really good pocket of people to chat with in New York. And Calgary, I didn't actually have really good connections beyond my co-founders. And so I started this like lunch series with the intent of just bringing together other founders that were at similar stages to where we were at. And that was really fun, and it started to grow. And it's since turned into like House 831 and the Long Calgary movement, which is really just trying to bring together ambitious individuals so we can all have like great conversation together and rally around the same things. And so to me, like community is that is being stuck in the conversation that you want to be stuck in and really enjoying it versus I think a lot of like community quote unquote that happens ends up being tiresome conversation and networking that doesn't really work out.
Yeah. Parker's book, she talks about purpose should be your bouncer. It should be your red rope. It should be what is really driving your decision making, and that kind of relates to curation. The more the merrier isn't always the best thing. So a nice intimate room that is full is a good thing sometimes when it's the right people and full of the right folks who are like-minded and here for various reasons, but probably all aligned on something. And so I'd love to throw that back on you because you've brought that up around curation and its importance. And I'd love to talk about how you think about kind of balancing that inclusivity and that intimacy and depth and curation. And then we can go down the line. I know, Phil, you curate these every week. So let's talk about curation.
Yeah, sounds good. And these three are going to have a lot better things to say than I am on this topic. I am definitely the amateur on this. I don't know, I find like the curation piece is a little bit like product market fit. It's this elusive thing that is difficult to define, but you know when you get it. And in product market fit, you might see that
your demand is like far outweighing your supply, or you feel like customers are just continually coming back and asking for more, and you're stretched so thin across your organization. And I think curation can be similar, but in a different way, which is like you live by it. Like, it's so difficult to describe, but you leave a night. Like, we had I'm looking at Zach there. Like, we had a dinner at House 831 last week. Saturday. A members dinner. Like, you felt the vibe. Like, you just know, like, oh, this is curated. And there's a bunch of different people around the table, and we're all talking about different things, but it's still very much homey, I suppose. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, these guys will have a better answer than I do.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the vibe is probably a sufficient answer. Yeah, I think for us, like, purpose and what we're trying to build, to us, I think one really important thing, I think, like, we're really hoping we want to create panels, and everything that we do is certainly aiming for a certain audience. Like, we want to attract senior members of the tech ecosystem. We want folks who work in the space who like want to come to similar to like podcast programming. Like, if I work in a niche industry, I'm going to go listen to a podcast that's like hyper niche from someone in like Silicon Valley, and I'm going to learn from them. We kind of want to create that, but with people up here that you can come up and meet and genuinely get to know, and maybe they can inform you about like something you've overlooked and haven't really thought of, and build longer term relationships. Or maybe it's the other way, right? Like, maybe we put up like a senior associate at a VC firm, and there's like a managing partner in the audience who like goes, oh, you said this thing on the panel in front of 800 people, you were so wrong, you know, or 100 people, not 800. And so like creating that opportunity to like actually create niche content that doesn't necessarily show up anywhere else, and we believe that hopefully, along with like what everyone else is doing, is enough of a step change to help this ecosystem kind of bridge the knowledge gap and get us to a point where we're sort of executing together as Silicon Valley would, as, you know, these other like large tech hubs would. So to the extent that we can sort of accelerate all of us to get to that point is what we want to do. And then maybe the purpose behind our city expansion as well. What we found often is these tech hubs are so insular. Like, Calgary, even just in Alberta, like Calgary, so few people know what's going on in Edmonton. So few people certainly don't know what's going on in Winnipeg. And we've already been running. You laugh because you have no idea what's going on. There's some cool stuff, I swear to God, you know. That's right, other than the Jets. But so to us, it's also about building really strong local community, but also trying to find ways to break down the barriers between these traditionally like very insular tech communities across Canada. So to the point where, like, as a Canadian tech ecosystem, we can start to bridge those gaps. If it's introducing investors to founders to their first engineering hire, if we can be the catalyst for that across these Canadian mid-market cities, that's really where we want to play and eventually get to.
Okay, so yeah, thinking about like balancing curation and inclusivity, we actually reached a point this spring where we were asking ourselves a similar question of what to do. For those of you who don't know, we started a run club last summer, and this was before we'd actually opened our in-person space. We were getting about 150 to 200 people out every week at our run club. So that's an example, like a very accessible, very inclusive event, come one, come all. I think that in like social media, maybe not news, but on social media, the big events are getting like a bad rap. I don't know if anybody saw like the coffee party Toronto, hot flash, but that's what I think of immediately. So this spring, we were thinking, okay, do we start our run club again, or do we not? We asked ourselves this question. We said, okay, curation and events that are more curated, more specific to a certain individual or their interests, that's kind of becoming the trend. So should we hop on that trend, next run club, or change it so it becomes a bit smaller, a bit more intimate? And where we landed is that, like, no, the balance is actually happening. So with our clubs, we're able to run curated events, make different, like bring in different instructors to do for different classes and like see what people like on an individual basis, make those more intimate. But having the Red Club and reaching out any individuals and having it accessible and inclusive is still so important. And we've only been early for 3 weeks, so we're in numbers. We're not as high as last summer yet. But we're already getting like 60 people last night, I'd say, which is great. And proves, and proves that like large events can still be well executed and still be very meaningful. But I think that there is a balance of like having curation with your brand while also having those like larger accessible events.
Great.
So I'll go down a couple of different paths. You started by saying that, sometimes you get in a room, you go to an event, you see all these people, you do all this chatting, and then you walk out the door and you say, like, was that actually worth the 2.5 hours I just spent at that event? And I think that's really critical. My partner actually for New Year's Eve resolution, or his New Year's resolution this year, said, I'm going to quit some people. I looked at him and went, not me, I'm guessing, but maybe someone else. But it is true. Have you ever gone over for dinner with people and then you leave there and you go, Jesus, I don't know, was it actually worth it for me to spend a couple of hours with these people? And so I think curating is really important because I think we only have so much time in the day, and you want to ensure that the time that you're spending away for your work or your family or your dog or your cat means that it was time well spent. On the Intergen front, we've had many of these conversations. The room was full. Yeah, but was it full with the right people? So we really want to concentrate on who we want in that room, because it's not just for us that we have the right people in the room, but it's for the people that are in the room, so that when they leave, they go, wow, that was the best 2 hours of my life. I just really liked that. It was great. So I think curation is important. I am a bit of the more the merrier person. I grew up in a family band, and the party was always at our house after. So I do like to gather with a lot of people, but back to the like-minded, are we all here for the same reason? Diversity is there, old, young. In our world, we'll have 82-year-old guys and girls in the room and 22-year-old entrepreneurs in the room, but we're all there for the same reason. So it's really critical, in my opinion, that when you are building a community, that you're really thinking about why you're building that community and who you want the rest.
Amazing. And so I think a lot of themes here, balancing inclusivity, curation, and kind of metrics, vibe metrics. I'd love to kind of get to know what metrics you use for success, if there are any. How do you balance that, keeping things afloat and successful? Would love to talk about the metrics that you all are using, if any.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, you have the mic.
So for us, I think the metrics have been kind of very qualitative. For Run Club and the different activities that we run, it's really about how do people show up? What are they saying when they're there? Are they coming back week over week, or even if it's on every week? Are we seeing them once a month? Have they come alone and then left with people? So it's really just observing our community and how they're interacting with one another, how they're interacting with our given activity, whether it's Run Club or the drinks afterwards, as they're attending those. And then I think for the club itself, we're looking at different qualitative metrics as well, where, again, we're just listening to people. What are they saying when they're in the space? And then how do they look when they leave? Because a lot of people come in, do they leave looking a bit happier, looking a bit calmer? It's actually really great. We had someone come in last week, and they had just done an 18K run, and they hauled in. And I was like, oh my gosh, you need a salad. And they came, used the space, and walked in like normal when they left. It was great. I was like, that's the best visual representation of what we can do. So everything we're looking at is very qualitative in the sense that you just have to be so attuned to what does the customer or the person in your community look like coming in, and what do they look like feeling.
Yeah, we're the same. We measure, we have metrics as to how many people attended the event, all of those things. But the ones that really stand out to me is if we're doing kind of a really dull thing like cap table management, what does it look like when you get an investor that is, 2-time pref shares sitting on the balance sheet or on the cap table? And it was like started at 5 o'clock at night and ended at 8. And then it went on the next night from 5 o'clock till 8. And they all came back. They're going, okay, I think we're doing something right here, because they don't like it the first night. They certainly weren't going to be there the second night. So we do look at some of those things to say, do we have the right people in the room? A lot of the people that talk to us about what we're doing in our kind of curated world is they will often say two words that I love to hear, and one is the depth of the conversation and the quality of the conversation were two things that they really liked. So if they felt like they learned something more than superficial, they're really liking that. So if we can gauge that with our community, I think that's really helpful. And then, you remember the 82 to 22, it is an intergenerational room. We look at three things in our organization. One is we want to amplify the space, so to inform the community that is the traditional oil and gas and manufacturing and trucking industry here, real estate, about what's going on in innovation. So everything we do has to fall into that category. The second would be advise, because we have senior business leaders that are helping entrepreneurs in their journey. And the third is accelerate, and that's really just helping them with capital or connections or first customers that they need in order to build their businesses. And if any of our programming or events are not aligned in one of those three categories, we don't do it.
That's super interesting. I suppose for like a bit of a look behind the curtain. So we started Tech Thursday. Actually, previously I led the talent marketing team at Neo. And so we started these events really we had raised our Series C. We had about 300 employees. We wanted to get to about 800 by the end of the year. So it was like, okay, we got to hire 500 people. How are we going to do that? And so we built out a whole employer brand strategy. How are we going to get more people to want to work for us? And events was a big part of that strategy. And for us, when we were attending events, we felt like there was a lack of events that on a regular cadence targeted senior members of the tech community. And so we decided to start Tech Thursday. We knew no one would want to come to a Neo recruitment event every week. So we started Tech Thursday as a way to let's make it super community focused. Let's highlight. It was exactly. We wanted to hire you. That's what this was. And we'll highlight different industries and just continuously bring out cool folks building really cool things. And so the ROI was really easy. It was like, how many people are applying for our roles? And are we able to fill these roles that we have vacant? And there's some other metrics as well, like with the acceptance rate on our offers from people who come to Tech Thursday first and meet us and see what we're doing in the community and sort of follow on from there. But at a certain point last year, we were no longer hiring at the scale that we were previously, but we brought on enough sponsors like the ones behind me that we were able to foolishly think this could be its own business. And so we decided to sort of spin it out into its own company and made a proposal to the Neo founders to spin it out. So that's what we've been doing since July. And so since July, it's really interesting. Now my only boss is capitalism. My only boss is not being able to pay my landlord at the end of the month. And so the key metric really, as much as the idea of social enterprise is there are three bottom lines: environmental, social, and financial. The reality is as much as I would love for a social bottom line to float an events company, it's really just financial. And so what does that mean? It means the true metric is are sponsors interested in what we're doing? Do they like what we're doing? Do they want to continue to support? And so that's very qualitative as well. It's do they come to an event and do they have a good time? But it's also what's our burn rate when sponsors sort of come up for renewal? Do they renew or do they not? And that's probably a good indicator of how we're doing. But at the same time, sponsors want to come and they want to get in front of the right people. So long as they're in a room of 50 people, are they happy with it? Have they gotten in front of the right people? Broad strokes, if they're annual sponsors, have they felt like they've, gotten their brand in front of enough people? But at the same time, it's you have to make sure that they're only going to be happy. It's like a two-sided marketplace, right? It's kind of like skip the dishes in a sense, where the restaurants sign up for Skip the Dishes because you're bringing customers to the network. So it's very similar in the sense that like, oh, is your programming good enough that people actually care and want to show up? And if it's not, you often have to, I've found myself recently being like, to the sponsors, I got to push back. We can't do this dumb idea that you have because no one's going to show up. Because you have to continue to elevate it for your attendees, and they have to want to show up. Otherwise, sponsors are going to be less happy too because no one's showing up to your room. So that's like me being way too vulnerable and just openly telling you how this is a business. So forgive me. But yeah, that's it. Yeah, forgive me. I've sold sponsorships to these things. I'm sorry.
Like I said, I love that. All right, we're going to argue with that. Okay, so I'll maybe talk about like the community of Zaysun, and I'll talk about the community of House 831. So with House 831, it's a little bit more of the vibes metrics. Unlike Phil, I'm a terrible capitalist, and I lose money every single month on House 831. I write a check. But there's an ulterior motive there as well. So, not too dissimilar to Phil wanting to hire a bunch of people through these events, last year. My ulterior motive with House 831 is I'm an investor in 36 different startups, and I want to continue investing in startups, and I want to be the first person that people come to in Calgary when they're raising a pre-seed round. Doesn't mean that I'm going to say yes to all of those people, but it means that I want to have that visibility to deal flow. And so I think by building that House 821 community, a curated community for founders, my hope is that I build a personal brand along with that, and can hopefully fund a lot of amazing Calgary-based companies. And so to me, that is worth writing a check every month to float it. That being said, we do look to get membership and try to offset those costs as much as possible through other things. On the Zaysun side of the house, it's a lot more quantitative. Of course, there's your qualitative metrics related to culture and everything, but it's definitely quantitative. So I know that we're building a good community there because we do an ENPS survey, an Employee Net Promoter Score survey every quarter, and we know that the score that we have is 8 points above benchmark for tech companies of our size across North America. We know that the questions that our employees ask us, we're able to put in place like action plans and stuff to make those better, so that when next quarter survey rolls around, did that score improve or not? So that's sort of like some of the stuff that I look at. And you don't think of like a company as community, but it definitely is. And the metrics that are associated with it, I think, can be associated with any community, which is like, are people, would people recommend it? That's ultimately what an ENPS is, right? Like, would people recommend your place as a place to work? And then the tech question as to like, why would they? And if you can constantly improve on those 10 questions, that you're doing a really good job.
Great HR metric. Okay, I think those of you who are, community builders in the room know that it's sometimes not as sexy as it looks. It can be really unsexy to host community and events. So I'd love to hear, what does a bad day look like for each of you? And then on the contrary, what is a win? What is a notable win, a connection? What are you most proud of? If it's a moment or an accomplishment. Let's hear the bad and then we'll go to...
Mine's really quick. So we do fireside chats a couple times a month. And with those fireside chats, have 8 people. That really, really sucks.
Campfire.
It's like a campfire chat. And you never know. Sometimes I bring in a guest and I'm like, this person's awesome. And they're traveling in through Toronto. I'm like, Killian, I love this person. And we get them up, but it just doesn't show up. And then other nights we have a completely full house. And so, I think the discouraging part of that is you don't always know what makes it work. And that's ambiguity is a killer, right?
Is it a win?
Was it? Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Other than innovators of the year.
I don't know. What's a win? Stuff like this is really fun. Yeah, this is a win. This is a win. This is again celebrating community with a bunch of community builders. This is awesome. The team is a win. I got the team members back there would do themselves.
That's a win.
Mine's exactly the same thing as yours in terms of like a bad day. Like, it's very hard to predict when an event is gonna like blow up or it's like not. And like I can deal with like everything else in event planning. Like I think everything's solvable, everything's easy. The moment I hate the most is like 15 minutes before the start of an event, and I'm just like standing there going like, it's possible no one shows up. And that's like really like, I think I just had a bad like 8th birthday party or something where no one showed up. And it's just scarred me.
Same as when you were a teenager.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, no one likes me at school. Yeah. But a good day is like I'll like run into someone who like came to an event like 3 months ago, and they'll go, "Oh, I met someone at your event that now I'm got a job," or we're starting a company together, and that like, or I met like an investor at your event. That stuff really tickles me. I love that stuff, and it happens like often, and I love it. I wish I could bottle all of those moments.
Okay, so like a bad day for me, I'm going to take it a bit personal, I guess. I would label myself as more of an introvert, so when building community, that can be really hard. Especially last summer when we had the weekly run club, and we were expecting to kind of like chat and be super energetic with 150 to 200 people. So I think that for me, it was really just like pushing through some of those energy woes, and then also like leading a lot on like Phil, because Phil helped a ton from club, and my co-founder Nina to help when I was just like, I actually can't do that this week. So that's kind of what a bad day I would say looks like when you're maybe more of an introvert building a community. A win though for Run Club, last summer was so great. We had so many people that started running with us like for the first time, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that most of the run clubs in the city started with like 5K or 6K, and we decided to introduce ourselves with a 3K, and it's a lot more accessible for those who have never run before. And by the end of the summer, it was so awesome to see like people, one, would come up to us and be like, "You're the reason I started running," and two, they would go from like the 3K to the 5K to running like a race, you know? So stuff like that is really awesome. And then with offline, like the club, since we're just getting started, literally every time we see someone new come through the doors, it's a win. Like it just feels really good. Every time someone buys a new membership, it's like, okay, we're doing something right. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, very similar comments. It's that panic just before it starts to see if anybody actually is going to show up. But a little trick of the trade, generally speaking, is that 30% of the people that said they're coming are not going to come. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter if you pay for it, you don't pay for it. Like, it's like, that's just kind of life happens to people, right? So, you know, when you used to get on a plane and it was oversold, you know why they were overselling that plane? Because sometimes people don't show up. So sometimes the panic is when everybody does show up and then you're going, okay, like I oversold this place and now we have no room for anyone. But our team is here, so Anna and Ali would have lots of comments about what good and bad days are like for sure. But a good day for me really would be that someone kind of, you know, disconnected from our world would meet me and find out that I, you know, am connected to Intergen, and they go, "Oh my God, I talked to someone the other day about what you guys are doing, and that's just really cool what you guys are too." So those are good days for me when that happens. And then a bad day would be when I think, "What do you mean you haven't heard of Intergen? Like, what? That's really what I want to see." So yeah, I mean, it's there's ups and downs. You know, running an event always is, you know, you worry financially, like can we make it happen? You know, talking about what metrics are for ecosystem builders. I literally put into ChatGPT, so what would success be for an ecosystem innovation builder? And it did said all those things like, do your people come? Do your supporters want to renew? Like, you know, for us at Intergen, we said success would mean that if anybody had a scaling company, they'll think of us first to see how we can help. If an investor was coming in from another site, you know, do they stop at Intergen and say, let's talk to some of your portfolio companies or people that are in your program? So it's interesting, but it is, community building is not a piece of cake. There's no doubt about that for sure. And one other thing is, we know when we started really in the beginning of 2020. We had one live event, our first breakfast club was live in March, and then COVID hit. And we're going, whoa, okay, like we're trying to build a community of these people and these people double-sided marketplace kind of thing. But for us, that was really helpful at the beginning because we were trying to attract a community that didn't even know they wanted to be a community together. And I think for some of our kind of senior business leaders that thought, well, I could just dial into a Zoom call and see what this breakfast club's all about. Or we started Wine Wednesday, like every week we had Wine Wednesday. Everybody go, okay, I'm in. So I think it helped us a little bit, that just in that first thing. And we would never have guessed that that would have been how we started, for sure. Yeah, massive. Exactly.
All right, amazing. My last event ever was 2 days before COVID. It was an International Women's Day, and the bad day was Shopify was our venue pulled out because they were closing everything down, and we were like, oh, it's nothing. It was obviously not nothing, but that was my last event, and it scarred me, and I have not had one since. So kudos to all of you. Okay, let's hear from you all. How do you want to do this, Phil, in terms of questions? Yeah, so how are you staying in touch with your community, not in person? How are you online, connecting with your communities? I'd love, Kat, you started yours kind of online, offline. That's kind of your whole thing.
Okay, I'll maybe provide some background and then I'll answer your question. So to kind of go back to when we started with the idea of building the Sonic Bowl Plunge Club, again, we were trying to find space and we were finding that it was taking way longer than we ideally wanted it to and thought it was going to. And so my co-founder and I said, okay, let's start building a community. So what we started with is an Instagram page. And we really just started hosting events. And when we jumped on the Run Club trend, because it really was a trend last summer, like everybody was hosting a Run Club, we posted a few Instagram reels and they really took off. And that's how we gained like so much of our following to date, was from that like initial kickoff of the Run Club, and it kind of snowballed from there. Because once people see a following, they book more into you. If we had like 2 followers, they'd be like, nah, I don't know. But we had like quite a few because of these reels that had gone viral. And that's how we continue to stay connected to our community, whether it's with Run Club or we do pickleball, we do climbing, and then also with our in-person club now, it's all through Instagram. So because we've built our community on that platform, that's where we continue to communicate with them. If it will expand to other platforms in the futures and the TBD, but right now we focus on Instagram.
Sandy, you have the intergenerational lens, so I'd be curious. Obviously, that's a very, tech forward. Yeah. How do you manage intergenerations and staying in touch?
Really, our platform of choice today is LinkedIn. It's the best way for us to reach the community. And, back to like our marketing teams, and Anna could give you a lot more advice about this. First of all, hire somebody in your marketing team. That will help a lot. But video is great. Video speaks 1,000 words. Short videos can just be so valuable. On LinkedIn, you can just tell the difference between a video post and non-video post. We did Twitter for a while. We just can't really seem to find a following on Twitter. And Twitter, as everybody knows, is changing dramatically. But, we talk about Instagram and Facebook because some of our community is connected with their family and their grandchildren on those platforms. And we have never really explored either one of those very effectively. So it is something that we would want to do. But LinkedIn is huge for us. We've got a great email following. And we've got good community partners that support us as well. So the calendar of events that are going on, we're there. We always try and work with other collaborators in the community to not do an event on the same night. And, that sort of thing really helps with your trying to build your community.
Yeah, the only thing I had to add, like we do very similar, like LinkedIn and newsletters. One thing I think we're trying to do a lot more of is engaging the in-person audience online, whether that's through like Motive, who created the Huddle app that we used to take questions. they film every second one of these, and so we'll post them up. And Mark and I are like actively figuring out like how to get people to watch these, because I think our long form content, like 12 people have watched them so far. So if you guys have ideas of like how you would engage, if there's a platform to build it, because I think like especially as we're launching new cities, if we can engage the in-person audience online, building an online following is significantly more scalable than sort of in-person attendees. So that's almost like putting ball back in your court of like, please let us know how you would engage folks other than LinkedIn, and also please follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram is dog shit. So please, I need followers. Thank you. Selfless plug. 240 followers.
Okay, we're gonna get it up to 500.
Let's go. Come on.
I don't know if I have anything really to add. I mean, maybe I'll speak about like from the Zayzun lens. We have, like I said, 200 or just over 200 team members. We connect daily. So we're fully remote. For the most part, we have 12 people in office here in Calgary. The rest of us are scattered across Canada, the U.S., and yet all 200 of us connect every single day. We have a 15-minute stand-up every morning, and we have a kind of flow that we run that through. Of course, not all 200 people are speaking on that stand-up, and it's become more chaotic and more time-consuming and less valuable as the company has grown. It's so something that we're revisiting and trying to switch the format of. But I think it is a love-hate thing for the company, and the people that love it really, really love it. And having that like game-day connection point, I think, is so vital. And then beyond that, it's what we do is House 831, and Zayzun is probably no different than anywhere else. It's like you connect over a Slack community and just drive that engagement. So we do have a full-time community manager. I think that like continual engagement is really important.
That's about when you're the important.
I actually don't know how I forgot this, but we actually built a dating app. So at Intergen, you can build a profile as a business leader and advisor that wants to support an entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur builds a profile and says, this is how I need support. So I'm an advisor, and I say my skill is in deals in China. And my venture says, I really need somebody that knows how to do deals in China. And they literally get matched, and then you swipe right, swipe left if you want to connect. So we do have a digital environment that is continually sending matches out to our community about people they might want to engage with.
That's so cool.
Other questions? Yet?
Hi, I'm really curious, how do you foster a connection and build like psychologically safe cases where you will feel comfortable holding the eye, building
Great question. The question was, how are you building authentic spaces for authentic connection, but then also the concept of psychological safety, where people feel safe to show up as themselves and have authentic connection?
I'll start. So I'd say for us, for Run Club specifically, and this was, again, something I really have to overcome, we really made sure that we were saying hi to everybody who was showing up. Like, when me, Phil, and Nina would meet on our meeting spot, we couldn't all just, like, hang out together. We would say, like, okay, let's split up. And you go find your people, talk to the people that had been before, and just, like, make sure you're actually interacting with all those people in your community, not just like staying. And I think as a community builder, you kind of have to do that. Like it's actually your job to be the person that's like really engaged with everybody, because other people are going to show up. They're not going to know people. They might stay in their shell. But as soon as you come up to them, you make that introduction. Like that could then mean they'll do that for someone else. So that's how we did it with Run Club.
For us, we've never wanted to like ultra design a space, like over engineer a space maybe for connection. Like we want to bring people together and create a really casual environment, and the opportunities to network from it will sort of emerge, and hopefully that's enough. But if you do have ideas of like how we could better make connections, that'd be awesome. In terms of psychological safety, I think we're also like we're not afraid to have possibly difficult conversations with people who make other folks uncomfortable, who come to our events. And so if that's happening, understandably, that's might be difficult to reach out to me, but reach out to anyone who sort of has moderated a panel, and they'll often funnel up the feedback to me, and I'll have those conversations. So on that side, we're always open. So also if there's like a process suggestion that you have for that, super open to hearing it too.
I would just say that, I'm not scared of kind of controversial things happening in a room. I just came back from the Angel Capital Association event in Ottawa, and Dan DeBow spoke about Build Canada, and he's an aggressive guy, right? He says, like entrepreneurship is not supposed to be easy. We can't help you if you can't help yourself, basically. And that's kind of his attitude that he had. And I kind of believe that attitude. And so we ended up, and I said, I got to bring Dan to Calgary. I love his message. He's all about Build Canada and really how we need to be a nation of builders. And one of the women said to me, well, but do you think would your female community like that? And I went, well, I don't know, but I'm not trying to curate for everybody's personality in the room. I'm trying to curate for a conversation that hopefully will have other people have a conversation, good or bad, about it, right? So I do tend a little bit of friction and a little bit of controversy and a little bit of, not everybody on the panel agreeing with everybody is kind of what I look for in a room, because I think that's more real. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I'm not consciously saying, is everybody going to like this person, I guess.
Yeah, I don't have time to add. I guess the safety component comes with trust. I think trust comes with that curation that occurs in the first place. And if you're surrounded by like-minded people, there's an inherent trust that exists there because everyone has some amount of vulnerability and some amount of understanding of the journey that you've been on. And so the community that I'm building is of early stage founders. And so there it's you can disagree on a bunch of stuff, but there's this inherent trust that's built between these people because it's a difficult thing to do that. So I don't know. I think it comes upstream, I would say, rather than downstream as would be the process.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, since you're all founders, do you believe that building a community, at least before you got to this point, do you believe that has a connection with your success in raising money and becoming startup founders, hiring all these people, or do you feel like you still had to mostly bootstrap it? It was solitary in the path. Do you feel like there is a connection with building a community and getting into where you are today in the earth?
Did you plant her in the audience to tee up what you're going to say? Yeah, about Intergen.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So, okay. So, I didn't have a community here in Calgary. My co-founder definitely did, but not necessarily in tech. Yeah, not the right community, right? And Calgary really stepped up for us. So typically, if you're a venture-backed company, you go out and you raise a pre-seed, and you raise a seed, and you raise your A, and it's done through institutions. And for us, it was a really winding, rocky road where our first $18 million, or I guess 18 US, so the first $25 million was raised entirely through high net worth individuals in Calgary and family office and venture funds like Intergen. So Sandy supported us when no one else would back in 2020. And there were multiple times where we were almost out of money. 3 weeks left before I'm in to make payroll and shit that I shouldn't be saying with the team here. But the community always stepped up. And I think in part, it's because we were show-facing that we were hitting numbers and we were doing great things. But it's also because the Calgary ecosystem is so supportive. And so I don't know, I guess I'm kind of rambling a little bit on that, but Yeah, I think for us, like, Calgary's been like very supportive of the Zazian story, and it acted as a launching pad for when we finally did go and raise money. And so in a way, I suppose that was like those 5 years of, blood, sweat, and tears, scraping and clawing together dollars. Like in effect, we were building our community.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that the key thing that Zayzoon did through that period is they communicated with their community. So we always knew what was going on. There was continual communication, good, bad, or indifferent, or how can we help, or what do we need? Like that's community, because you're reaching out and you're being honest and vulnerable and telling people like it is, and that's what a community actually means. So, if Zayzoon hadn't embraced that community and then went back to them and said, hey, by the way, like, we're running out of money, we need money, they would have, well, where have you been for the last 8 months? We haven't heard from you, right? So that's part of being in a community, means that you are in the community and you are actually contributing in that community. And I think that's really what was the difference for Zayzoon.
Yeah. So I guess the only thing I'll add is that 100% the community has helped us build the company. And I'll go back to originally what you said. Did it make it easier? Did it help with the hurdles? No. But it made us so much more confident in what we were doing, which I think is the biggest hurdle, is you constantly, as a founder in your head, have this voice that's maybe this isn't a great idea. So building that community and having the third party opinion was invaluable to ensuring that we actually made it to open, because it took so much work, but without the people that we met along the way and our community behind us, it wouldn't have happened.
All right, I want to be mindful of time here. Bill, what do you think? One more or wrap it up?
Let's go to James. James, last poll.
Yes, okay, so say I have a company that may want to sponsor your community, or I have a service that I'd like to, offer to your members. What's your process for curating those partners? How involved is your community in that decision making? And any tips for somebody trying to dominate them?
Just, you can write the chat right now.
That's a great question, James. James and I had lunch, and he wants me to use Prompty, and we haven't used it yet. And so your question is, how do we start using Prompty?
Not necessarily Prompty.
Hypothetically. Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think our process isn't super well defined. So someone else might, but I do think we're constantly, to your earlier question of how do we engage communities online that show up in person. I think we're constantly trying things, seeing what does engage people, what people are using, and how do we then fine tune it and sort of blow it up. So, as an example, certainly we were looking for solutions to take questions. I would say with the Huddle app that Motive has built for us, it was they were kind of solving two problems at once, where they both had built the app that they wanted to get feedback for, and so they asked us if we could use it, but also they had an in-house studio team and offered to film every second one. And if you're in the event space, videography is $2,000 an event. And when you're just is that fair, Sandy? Yeah, right? It's way too...
Working with the Kelly brothers, then it's a lot more.
Yeah, exactly. Or I actually went out and I was like, hey, could I get people to film events? Can you send me something? And it was I was getting $7,000 quotes for one event. And I was I don't think you understand what Tech Thursday is. But so they were kind of killing two birds with one stone of yeah, of course, we'll trial your app and you'll make this free. And so there's a partnership model that became really a no-brainer for us. Yeah, of course, we'll try it out. And the app is really cool. And every week they're updating and adding things based on the feedback that they're receiving from our events. So in that case, it was just so clear to do both. But it's also you don't want to add too many services and trial too many things at the same time. because then I think people will just get lost, right? And the engagement is something like is so precious that you don't want to just like throw it away.
I will just add that Philip, you said something earlier about a sponsor that wasn't the right sponsor because they wanted you to do something in a different way, and that's really critical when you're trying to find supporters for your organization. You know, it's easy just to take the check, but then you go like, they want you to do like a tax session or something. Well, I can tell you nobody's going to come to a tax session. And I said, so that's not solving anyone's problems, right? So you do really have to say, is this the right supporter for us and what we're trying to do? Because ultimately you want it to be a win-win on both sides, and you're better off to say no to that supporter if you don't think your community can support them the way that they expect to be supported. So I think that's critical when you're finding supporters. And to be really fair, running events is extremely expensive. Like, you know, an extra mic is $300. Like, I mean, it's nuts how expensive things are to run. And I think people don't realize that to have a good quality production, it does cost a lot of money. You know, we do Y Wednesday across the street at the Hyatt, and I don't know, I think it's like $3,000 to mic us up or something, right? So it's like, and I grew up in a band, like we used to carry our own equipment and then actually set it up. So I don't know what it's all about, but it is expensive. You need to find the right supporters, I would say.
All right. Do you have anything else? No? Okay. Let's call it. That was awesome. Thank you all. Can we all leave a round of applause for our community builders? Yeah. And yourselves, if you're community builders, thank you. I hope you all feel the power of what you're up to. Let's stick around and get to know one another. We're going to be up here for questions. Yeah, thanks for coming out.
Thank you.